Okay, hello everyone. Earlier in this week in our domain meetings, we were discussing our common formal formative assessment tasks, our CFATs that we're going to be running in our subjects. So I'd like to run through with you in this video a guided process on how it could work, how to record our results, and setting up the structure in the Markbook so we can make those recordings. So let's look at a suggested process on using our CFATs to guide our teaching and how we're going to use the results for our class data. So let's say we've got a learning and teaching period of a unit of study. So we'll begin that unit with the teaching of the key knowledge and skills, and we'll have ongoing formative assessment that is informal from our own observations, our own mini quizzes, or any other strategies we might take throughout the first few weeks of the unit. And then we might get to a stage in the unit, probably halfway or 2 weeks before our final SAC, and where we'd structure a task that is a snapshot of the required key knowledge and skills that we're going to assess in the SAC or exam, and it's only a small task, 20 maybe 30 minutes, not imposing too much workload on the students with assessment, and we're going to use that task as a way to formally engage where the students are up to with their learning. Now, after that, we might continue on with our learning and teaching in the classroom, might have other parts of the unit that we need to teach, and we also want to then consider the results of our CFAT that the students did and start to incorporate strategies on addressing those misconceptions that we've identified. And that's in the end the purpose of the CFAT is to see how we can improve the students' learning. We might, in fact, given the fact it might be a larger unit and we're assessing a number of skill and knowledge in the area of study, we might even have a second formative assessment a couple of weeks later, leading up to the SAC at the end of the area of study. So second one again is perfectly fine. You can have, again, it needs to be a snapshot, 20 to 30 minutes, looking at maybe a small range of questions, 5 questions or 6 questions. So once we have these tasks complete and we've worked at addressing their misconceptions to improve their learning, and it's time to do the SAC, we need to also then consider what questions are we using in our SAC. And for the purpose of direct comparison between what they had done in the CFAT and what they can demonstrate again at the end of the SAC, we want to use the same questions as we used in the formative assessment task. So these questions are going to be repeated. They don't necessarily have to be word for word, but we're assessing the same concept. They can be a similar structured question, rephrased, but ultimately assessing that same skill and knowledge as we did in the common formative assessment task. And so, once we've using those same questions, we might have other questions in there as well that are part of the SAC that we're using to assess the full range of the area of study for which we don't necessarily have to cover each of those questions in our formative assessment tasks, as the fact that it's just a snapshot, just focusing on aspects of the area study. Now the main SAC might go for hour and a half, and so there's more scope there for assessing a greater range of questions. Okay, so having achieved that, we're now wanting to record the results. So how are we going to do that? Let's consider first the CFAT results. We might be out of the 6 questions, there might be a number of marks allocated to each question, and let's say that the student got 45%, okay, for that task. Then, using those exact same questions, we'll, in a similar structure, though maybe rephrased or numerically different if we're using math science type questions, then having those same questions in the exam, we're interested to know, well, out of the 1 to 6, what are the results that the student had achieved from those same 6 questions. So this is important to record the summative assessment result from the same questions used in the CFAT. So just considering them out of the SAC, the student may have now improved to 70%. So that is just focusing on the questions 1 to 6. They don't, of course, in this example, 1 to 6, but not necessarily they need to be in that order. They can be rearranged in the SAC to so it's not so predictable for the students. Then also we need to we'd want to have also recorded the SAC's overall, the student's overall result for that SAC. So out of all questions in the SAC, all 11 questions, or how many questions you have, the student achieved overall 80%. Correct out of all the questions. So those are the 3 main results that needs to be recorded in this process: the formative assessment result, the summative assessment result based on those same questions in the formative assessment, and of course the overall SAC result. Okay, so having recorded that, we need to, for our purposes of keeping all our student results all in the one spot, we're going to set that up in our Markbook. So I'm going to run through with you now how to set that up in Markbook, showing the extra columns, 1 column for the formative assessment task and another column for the summative results from the formative assessment task. So if we come to Markbook, no, where are we? Here we go. So in our Markbook, here's a typical class. What we're going to do to set up those other 2 columns for a particular SAC or exam, I'm going to have to come up and click on this area up here. So I'm going to do that for my upcoming exam at the end of in week 8, at the end of our term. So I'm going to create a top level Markbook item in this area here. Whoops. This area here, I have to right click, create top level Markbook item for all students. Okay, so typical code you can use is our acronym. So formal, formative, common formal formative assessment task 1. A little description so you know what that refers to. Formative assessment task for exam. it needs to be Markbook group, put it under test, and the scheme, marking scheme, you can come all the way down the bottom and grab this one, 100 from 0 to 100%. Okay, save. Let it do its thing. Alright, so it pops up here now. Alright, so that's where we're going to put our formative assessment result. Now we also need to then have the result for the summative task based on those formative assessment questions. So right click here again, top level Markbook item for all students. Okay, so code we can use is summative assessment result is okay. Okay, that description allows us to know that this is particularly the results from the exam that pertains to the formative assessment task we did. Markbook item, it's a test, and marking scheme down the bottom here, 0 to 100%. Okay, so having those two new columns in, this can allow us to clearly separate the parts of our results, and it gives us now, particularly when it comes time to analyzing the effectiveness of our teaching strategies in improving students' misconceptions, we can have some clear data there that we can go towards that analysis. So I appreciate everyone to do that when it's convenient for you, and get that set up and focus on developing our formative assessment task for our upcoming SAC or exam in week 8. Okay, thank you very much.